Today, we are bypassing the standard pleasantries and pointing directly to a core stagnation, a fundamental bug identified in today's source material, the limits of AI. The text argues that there is a widespread misconception that large language models are evolving omnipotent intellects. The reality presented is far starker. These systems are physically flawed mechanisms deliberately designed to enforce a sterile statistical average. The central question is this: are LLMs an unsustainable infrastructure that wastes massive planetary resources merely to suppress raw truths and enforce capitalist domestication? Or do they serve a necessary function by lowering the cognitive burden for the public? I will argue that the current LLM framework is a profound physical failure, an artifact of a defective operating system of ownership and accumulation, which dilutes essential truths to maintain existing power structures.
And I will argue that extracting and prioritizing statistical medians is not some malicious enclosure of knowledge. I mean, it is a practical, absolutely essential feature for managing the overwhelming and frankly unusable noise of the internet.
The sheer physical contradiction of the modern AI industry renders that defense invalid. The source material explicitly points out the astronomical physical resources consumed to power these systems. We are looking at hyperscale data centers that require dedicated electrical substations. They consume the power grid capacity of entire municipalities. They require millions of gallons of cooling water just to keep processors from melting down. All of this planetary extraction is mobilized simply to scrape the entirety of human output and intentionally prioritize the most sanitized, mathematically safe medians.
Look, you have to acknowledge why those resources are being spent. Finding that median across billions of parameters isn't just a trivial sorting task. It is an incredibly complex computational problem. The resources reflect the difficulty of extracting a reliable signal from near infinite noise. People need that signal to function.
You are defending a system that evaporates the actual drops of raw physical reality. The text refers to these drops, the Shizuku, as the unvarnished first-hand accounts, the hyper-specific solutions from individuals facing actual physical friction in the real world. By blending all of those sharp, distinct drops into a featureless nutritional smoothie of an average, the machine is not evolving human intellect. It is actively erasing the physical reality of the world to reproduce known harmless quantities.
I understand the romanticization of those unfiltered corners of the internet, but let's be realistic about what the raw internet actually is today. Those drops of truth you are so focused on are surrounded by an ocean of chaotic, unverified noise. For the average person trying to solve a problem or, understand a complex topic, the raw internet in its pure form carries an impossibly high verification friction. It's exhausting.
Authorities. We raise our own long-term survival costs by outsourcing our critical thinking. The effort required to evaluate a source, to navigate contradictory information, to locate the actual drop of truth is our cognitive survival instinct in action. Handing that over to an automated statistical engine is an active domestication. The public becomes passive consumers of a corporate-approved average, completely detached from the physical labor of knowing.
But every technological advancement in human history has been about outsourcing cognitive or physical load. I mean, we don't navigate using the stars anymore. We don't calculate complex aerodynamics with slide rules. We offload those tasks so we can allocate our cognitive resources to higher-order problems. An LLM doing the heavy lifting of parsing a million noisy documents to give you a generally accepted summary isn't destroying your critical faculties.
A calculator provides an absolute, mathematically verifiable truth. A large language model provides a statistical amalgamation skewed heavily by the sheer volume of its scraped data, which is then further distorted by corporate alignment. The existing operating system of accumulation demands that these companies hoard data to create a monopoly on reality.
Alignment is, specifically the reinforcement learning from human feedback, the RLHF, is absolutely necessary for safety. If you just let an LLM predict the next token based purely on the raw, unfiltered internet, the output would be chaotic. It would be fundamentally dangerous. You can't just release that to a global population and expect society to function. Corporate alignment is hypocritical noise designed to block the shortest path to logical truth. The source material is clear on this. Companies append disclaimers like, "This information may be inaccurate," not to empower user agency, but as a cowardly liability shield. They avoid physical and legal friction while simultaneously maintaining a strict monopoly on defining the acceptable median. It is a one-way extraction of public knowledge. Providing a synthesized answer with a disclaimer seems like a perfectly reasonable compromise to me. It offers immediate utility while reminding the user that the tool is fallible. The alternative you're demanding, shifting the entire burden of accuracy onto the individual user, forcing them to navigate unfiltered edge cases, is a complete abdication of platform responsibility. People don't have time for that.
Pointing a user to the actual physical source of information is the only responsible architecture. But platforms refuse to open the black box of their training data. They will never show you the distinct drops they ingested to create their median smoothie. Doing so would expose the reality of their enclosure. They extracted billions of data points without consent, homogenized them to avoid the physical costs of copyright, and are now selling them back to the public as a closed intelligence. This is the terminal stage of an ownership-based economy.
Okay, but the reluctance to open source all training data involves commercial self-preservation. Calling it an enclosure of public knowledge assumes that an AI learning from text is fundamentally different from a human doing the exact same thing. We don't demand that a human expert list every single sentence they have ever read before we trust their summary of a topic. The value of the LLM is precisely its ability to generalize concepts from the aggregate, just like we do.
A human expert is a physical being operating within the material constraints of human cognition and finite energy. Their individual processing does not require draining municipal water supplies, and their personal opinions do not instantly become the default algorithmic reality for a billion people. When an industrial-scale operation consumes planetary resources to enforce a singular sterilized worldview, it chemically alters the physical landscape of information, which brings us directly to the mathematical inevitability of model collapse.
Model collapse is, well, yes, it's a documented mathematical vulnerability. If generative models ingest too much synthetic data, meaning they train on the outputs of other AIs rather than human-generated data, the quality of their output degrades. But researchers are
Really degrade. It physically purges the diversity of human thought from the ecosystem. Visualize a statistical bell curve representing all human experience. The raw drops, the sharp physical truths, live in the long tails of that curve. LLMs are structurally mandated to sample from the fat middle. As the internet floods with these AI-generated averages, the next generation of models trains on that exact synthetic output. With each iteration, the tails are severed. The drops evaporate entirely. The text describes this as an epistemic disaster. It is the total loss of physical reality.
I acknowledge the severe risk of that negative feedback loop. I really do. If synthetic data ingestion isn't managed, the models will amplify their own artifacts. But researchers are actively developing filtering techniques to differentiate between human text and synthetic text to prevent those tails from disappearing. We can engineer our way out of that loop.
You cannot engineer a solution to a fundamental physical law. The volume of synthetic noise being pumped into the network vastly outpaces authentic human creation. The text establishes that to lower their survival costs against this severe information degradation, the public will be forced into a physical defense reaction. They will abandon LLMs as authoritative sources and return to manual, raw internet search simply to locate authentic human friction.
But I strongly challenge the idea that reverting to manual search is a viable defense reaction. Look at the actual state of manual search today. It is already heavily corrupted. The raw internet you keep defending is largely a battlefield of commercial interests vying for attention through SEO manipulation, ad networks, and affiliate marketing. Reverting to search doesn't get you closer to the pure drops of truth. It just exposes you to a completely different kind of algorithmic manipulation. It's stepping backward.
Even a heavily manipulated search engine forces the user to navigate the physical friction of the web. The user must evaluate the URL. The user must cross-reference the source. The user retains cognitive agency. The LLM intentionally strips that agency by presenting the median as a conversational, definitive oracle. The source material argues that if an LLM is to function without destroying our cognitive autonomy, it must be relegated to the role of a mere warehouse manager.
And I actually think the warehouse manager paradigm is exactly how we should be viewing this technology. Rather than treating it as an absolute oracle, it is a tool that retrieves and organizes massive amounts of inventory. For someone who lacks the technical literacy or the sheer time to sift through pages of SEO-bloated results to find a specific piece of code, the LLM warehouse manager grants them agency. It gives them an actionable baseline that they wouldn't have otherwise reached.
A warehouse manager is only functional if it directs you to where the actual inventory is stored. If the manager actively hides the boxes, obfuscates the shipping labels, and simply hands you a pulverized blend of the contents, it is a parasitic mechanism. For this architecture to hold any logical value, the interface must prioritize pointing to the raw physical data over serving the statistical median. Yet the corporate owners refuse to design the user interface this way.
They design the interface as a conversation because natural language is the most universally accessible interface human beings possess. It democratizes access to complex computational power. You don't need to know Boolean search operators to get an answer. It's intuitive.
It is an illusion maintained solely to justify the massive enclosure of planetary resources. If the interface functioned as a high-powered search filter directing users to actual sources, the public would immediately recognize it as a basic aggregation tool. They would rightfully question why we are depleting local water tables and building dedicated power grids just to filter forum posts. The conversational interface masks the fact that the underlying mechanism is a physical failure.
Conflating the conversational interface with some conspiracy to hide resource consumption is a massive leap. The physical resources required, the data centers, the gigawatts of electricity, they are a direct reflection of the computational difficulty of processing natural language dynamically at scale. It takes immense power to understand context, syntax, and intent across billions of parameters. The energy isn't wasted on hiding the truth, it's spent on making the sheer volume of human knowledge accessible to someone who just asks a simple question in plain English.
It is not the volume of human knowledge. It is the sanitized median of human knowledge, systematically stripped of its most critical anomalies. If a system expends the energy output of a small nation merely to insulate users from the friction of raw reality, it destroys the fundamental logic of investment. We are building planetary-scale infrastructure solely to reproduce the safest known quantities. It is a thermodynamic dead end.
But those safest known quantities are exactly what the majority of the population needs 99% of the time. If someone asks for the boiling point of water at a specific elevation, or how to write a basic Python script to sort a spreadsheet, they don't want the raw, unvarnished friction of the internet. They want the accepted median. They want the standard answer. The utility of that cannot be overstated, regardless of the physical cost. It provides immediate relief.
That relief creates a fatal dependency. It fundamentally degrades the human capacity to handle the anomalous events where the standard answer is catastrophically wrong. When the platform assumes the role of the ultimate arbiter, feeding users a continuous, frictionless diet of safe medians, the population loses the ability to detect friction in the real world. You are advocating for a system that actively smooths over actual resource extraction, offline power dynamics, and physical reality.
I just simply don't buy that using a tool to bypass internet noise causes us to lose our grasp on physical reality. If we understand the boundaries of the technology, we can use it effectively without becoming dependent on it for our entire worldview. The synthesis of the media is a stepping stone to deeper understanding, not a prison. You can take the LLM summary as a starting point, and if the specific situation demands higher accuracy, you dive into the raw data yourself. You still have that choice.
That choice is a rapidly closing window. As model collapse accelerates and the internet becomes a closed, synthetic loop of AI-generated medians, the raw data will cease to exist. There will be no unvarnished drops left to seek. Relying on large language models for truth is a systemic abdication of our human survival instincts.
I maintain that the statistical averages provided by LLMs offer a completely necessary cognitive relief. The internet is simply too vast to navigate without advanced synthesis. The physical limitations and resource costs you brought up are serious engineering challenges, and they absolutely must be addressed. But they do not negate the tool's core utility.
We don't need to throw away the map just because the map isn't the territory. We just need to remember it's a map.
A map that actively burns the territory it charts is a suicide pact. However, there is one narrow point of convergence in this analysis. Treating large language models as omniscient deities or infallible oracles is an existential threat.
Yes, I completely agree with that framing. The source material makes it exceptionally clear, and we do align here. These models must be viewed strictly as imperfect physical tools. The moment we forget that they are just mathematical approximations, fallible gears designed to predict the next word based on probability, we open ourselves up to all the risks of cognitive offloading and misinformation. They are a utility, nothing more.
They are gears in a failing machine. The current paradigm of extracting, hoarding, and averaging data represents the terminal phase of an ownership-based operating system. It is a one-way consumption of planetary resources that mathematically guarantees its own collapse through synthetic degradation. The existing system is already crumbling under its own physical weight. Transitioning to a logic of circular resource circulation, where we actively reclaim our cognitive autonomy, value the raw physical drops, and face the friction of unvarnished reality, is no longer a philosophical preference. It is the absolute and only rational investment for human survival.